Good evening. Call to order the Board of Education meeting for August 29th. In accordance with Chapter 231 PL Law 1975, this public meeting of the Sayreville Board of Education has been established by sending a copy of the public meeting notice to the Home News Tribune and the Star Ledger. In addition, copies of the announcement of this meeting have been sent to the Borough Clerk, and a copy of the notice of the meeting has also been posted on the bulletin board outside the office of the Secretary of the Board. And now I ask that you rise to pledge the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd ask that you remain standing for a moment of silence. We lost a member of the class of 2022, Eli Sam Santana, who drowned while trying to save his cousin and his brother. And also we were notified today that a former director of special services in our district and a former special education teacher, Annabelle Baum, who is the mother of Eric Baum, one of our math teachers, has also passed away. So for them and their families. Thank you. Ms. Hill, roll call.
Mr. Callahan?
Present.
Mr. Esposito?
Here.
Mr. Fernandez?
Here.
Mrs. Napolitano?
Here.
Mrs. Pabon?
Here.
Ms. Pylock? Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
And Mrs. Bloom.
Here. Okay, Ms. Hill, will you summarize for us executive session?
The board discussed personnel, including but not limited to agenda items and matters falling under attorney-client privilege.
Okay. Any correspondence? No. Of course, no one writes to us. That's sad. Okay, I now need a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
So second.
Okay, Mr. Callahan, Mr. Walsh.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez?
Yes.
Mrs. Napolitano?
Yes.
Mrs. Pabon?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
And Mrs. Bloom.
Yes. Okay. Student council representatives. We don't have any.
They will be joining us in September.
They will be joining us in September. Wonderful. And they will be from the high school, Sean Burns, and from the middle school, Ashton Powando?
Yep.
Okay. Board president's comments. Just one thing I just wanted to mention, I passed it out to you that the Middlesex County has given me the schedule of their dates of their meetings, so I provided you with that and the location. The Unsung Heroes is scheduled for April 10th, but according to Dr. Labby, we may have a conflict with a religious holiday, so I will look into that and get back to you on it. And that's about it for me. Danielle is not here. She's not feeling well, so we will not have any vice president comments. And we will move right on to our presentations.
Thank you, Mrs. Bloom. And this evening, Mrs. Grossman is going to present to you the 2023 Student Standardized Assessment results.
Thank you, Dr. Labby. Good evening, everyone. You have a hard copy for your review, I believe, in your folders. So I'm just briefly going to go through the results for our AP testing, our New Jersey Graduation Proficiency Assessment, our RETA Access testing, which is for our multilingual learners, and our recently released NJSLA results.
And for those hundreds of people that are viewing online right now,
Thanks.
the presentation is posted on our website under the category of this meeting night.
So the first slide that you are going to be seeing from the beginning. Yeah, you're good. The first slide that you are seeing is a snapshot of our AP results, which we were very pleased about. We offer a significant number of courses at the high school for our advanced placement. and the data that is presented in bold and italicized letters indicates significant performance. We have, courses where we had almost 100% of our students that met the score. AP Stats actually had 14 out of 14. AP Chem had 15 out of 15. We also saw significant growth in the average scores for those courses. Just to point out, some of the courses that we have available are online asynchronous courses through Apex, so I indicated that for those courses as well so that you could see the performance for those specific courses, and when we talk a little bit about action steps we're taking, I will address those as well. But we were very pleased with the amount of students that achieved the 3, 4, or 5 for their courses, and with the average scores for those classes as well. Chris? The next 3 slides are breaking down the scores by the kind of content area. So we have humanities, we have computer sci and math, and then we have our physical science courses. And I know that one of the things that we look at is growth over the years. That's how we look at our curriculum and our instructional methods to see if we're preparing the students for the rigor of those exams. So year by year for humanities, for English, history, Spanish, psychology, art, and our new AP courses that are related to the arts, we have, and AP government as well, an increase in 4 of the different courses. They're also indicated and italicized for you. So we have AP Literature and Comp, AP US History, AP Spanish, and AP Art History, most notably for the increase in the scores. The next slide is going to take you to our Math, Comp Sci, and Business. And again, any of the significant increases are indicated in bold and italicized letters. So AP Stats with an average score of 4.26, AP Calc AB with 4.38, and AP Calc BC with 4.3 are very high averages for those courses. They are extremely difficult mathematical courses. The next slide is year by year with our sciences, so AP Bio, AP Chem, and AP Environmental Science. And again, we were very pleased with the increase in the scores and also the overall averages. AP Bio with a 3.96, again, is a outstanding score for that course. We always look at data to see what we are going to be doing so that we can improve the services that we provide for our students and making the success on these exams more accessible. So based on the data that you were just reviewing, we are going to pivot to Edgenuity, which is a online company that is going to provide some AP courses for us for 23-24. And we wanted to look into expanding the companies that we partner with, because Edgenuity also provides the coursework is a little bit more engaging, and it also provides access to a tutor. So the AP courses that they are going to be providing for us, French, U.S. government and politics, and psychology, we'd love to offer more through them, but these were the only ones that were available that our students were enrolling in. So we're looking forward to comparing the results from this year to next year when those student scores come back for those courses. We are going to continue to provide AP Boot Camp in the summer of 2024. We've been doing that for 2 years now, and the students, we've had positive feedback from the students, from the parents, and from the teachers, just about the ability to build a rapport with the teacher, the ability to become more familiar with the College Board website, which is what they use to prepare for it throughout the year. They also get support with their summer coursework, which is an important part of all of our AP courses, and we are using federal title monies to grant that program. We are also going to continue to offer our AP teachers professional development through the College Board when available for their courses. Not every course has trainings each year, and not all of them are geographically friendly for our staff members, but as they come up and we keep in touch with the College Board for those availability and local colleges, we do encourage our staff members. In fact, we had one this summer that we provided the funding for so that they could attend to be trained directly from the College Board. The next set of data that is available for your review is the WIDA Access 2.0 assessment for our multilingual learners. This is administered every spring. There's a window from February through April, and our multilingual learners, formerly known as our English language learners were assessed in the 4 domains of English proficiency: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. They are awarded an overall score of 1 through 6, and students that achieve a 4.5 or higher are considered exit ready from ESL. So their ESL eligibility is ranked with that grade level proficiency. Overall, we had 277 of our multilingual learners complete the WIDA Access 2.0. Our overall proficiency score was a 2.90, and the number of students that were meeting the exit cut score of a 4.5 was about 3.6% of our students, which was 10. We were a little bit disappointed in these scores. We think that we wanted to take a closer look at how the test has evolved, because they have been revising the test over the last several years, and we wanted to see exactly where our students were falling short. So we're going to be analyzing that with the new English ESL World Language Supervisor, Mrs. Suzanne Caprero, and the members of our ESL team. On the bottom, just a little bit of a snapshot of data here in the district. 288 students in grades K through 12 were receiving services. 50 of them were identified in our pre-K program. We had 338 total. 27 languages are represented in our district, and our bilingual waiver for 23-24 is going to be put in place for our Portuguese, Spanish, and Ukrainian speaking students, and that waiver has to be put into place when you have 20 or more of a group of students speaking a singular language. So Ukrainian increased a little bit, and our Arabic population decreased a little bit.
What does the waiver do?
So the New Jersey Department of Education has legislation in place that if you have a significant number of bilingual speakers, so if you have more than 20 Spanish speakers in district, you have to provide bilingual courses. And there are several problems that come into that for multiple districts. So the New Jersey Department of Education recognizes that, and they allow you to put into places other supports rather than providing biology, mathematics, history, and science in that primary language, K through 12, which wouldn't make sense because I think we're at about 80 students, are spread throughout the grade level, and they're spread throughout the district buildings. So we have things in place like our sheltered instruction, observational protocols, and our SEI training. So throughout the year, sometimes you are approving teachers to go for PSYOP or SEI training through Stockton University. So what we do, and the good part about it is we're able to support all of our English language learners in those 27 languages. We prepare our teachers to support English language learner students across the content area and across the grade levels. So that's one thing that we do. We also use some of our grant money to provide tutorials. We have family engagement evenings. So there are a lot of things that we provide that support the students that speak not just Spanish, Portuguese, and Ukrainian, but we support all of our multilingual learners.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So comparatively, results by year, you can see that, we have always kind of fallen under that 10% for our exit criteria for the students. We did have a low number of students take the test in 2020, and that was interrupted by the COVID pandemic as well. So you can see that we are definitely in a place where we want to look to improve how we are meeting the needs of these learners. The next page is aggregated data by our subgroup. So you can see that our Hispanic students, our Black and African American students, and our Asian students are Hispanic just under the overall score for 2.9 for all languages. Our Black and African American students, the average score was 3.01, which is above our overall score average, and our Asian students 3.4, and again, that exceeds the overall score average. We have multilingual learners that come from every continent in this district, and their level of education prior to coming to Sayreville varies from students that have not been in school for multiple years to students that attended schools that were in multiple languages. So we also take into consideration the amount of educational preparedness that our multilingual learners come in. The New Jersey student learning standards are rigorous. They're high expectations. So we kind of look at that subgroup and what schools, what countries these students are coming from. On the next page, we have our action steps. Again, we look at our data, we collect it, but we also look what action steps are we taking. We have dedicated a certified ESL teacher for each building for 23-24. During the budgeting process, you approved an additional teacher for the district, so that is going to allow us to have smaller groups in our pullout and to have other possibilities for the ESL teachers to be a resource for the content area teachers in their building as well. They're not traveling, they actually have that home base where they can work with the staff that is there and the families that are there. We are also going to be utilizing federal Title IIIA grant funding for technology devices that are going to help with translation and help with providing audio support to our multilingual learners. The purchase of the OrCam devices, I believe, might have been in last month's agenda. So that part of our funding is used for that. And Tier 2 level tutoring to support our multilingual learners is going to be available K through 12 in all of our buildings. They will have access to certified ESL teachers available after school or before school, depending on the parent need, for our English learners. We are also going to be analyzing our domain results to make instructional decisions in our ESL pullout courses. For example, last year's data showed that the speaking portion was the lowest average score of the 4 domains. So the ESL teachers last year worked together in their professional learning community to develop activities and assessments that were going to mirror what the students were going to be experiencing during that assessment. They are given a picture to talk about, or they are given a story to finish, and they have 1 shot to record their response. It's a very rigorous expectation for a nervous ESL student to do. And because they were able to bring in those instructional activities and those assessments within their classes, we did see an increase in that domain. So we will continue to look at that data as we work with the ESL teachers as well. Our NJGPA results were shared with the Student Achievement Committee and referenced at the last meeting as well, but here are all of the specific data points that we have to share with you. Our 11th grade students, in accordance with the NJDOE graduation assessment requirement for English and mathematics, are responsible for taking the New Jersey Graduation Proficiency Assessment annually. They took it in March of last year. The cut score for English Language Arts and Mathematics for this year was 725. So students that earned a 725 in math met the requirement for mathematics. Students that earned the 725 in English met the requirement for English Language Arts. Any junior, or this year they are now class of 2024 a senior, so any existing senior that did not meet that cut score has to demonstrate graduation proficiency readiness through an alternate pathway or through a portfolio before graduation in June. So if we look at the data that was presented, 87% of our students were graduation ready for English Language Arts, and that was about 6.5% higher than the state average. The mathematics, a little bit more troublesome. We are definitely putting things in place, and we'll talk more about math as the presentation goes on. But 56.5% were graduation ready, and that's just over the state average for mathematics.
Now, is that total student population, or is this just kids without IEPs or 501s, or is this?
So the only students that are exempt from the New Jersey graduation testing requirement are students that are assessed using dynamic learning maps, and it's less than 1% of the class population each year. So this score represents...
So this is a true student population?
Yes, this is truly our full, we have students that have IEPs, we have students that are ESL students that moved to this country in February and took the test in March. And it represents students with 504s as well.
Don't we want to break that out so we can get a more true sense of how we're doing?
Unfortunately, it's New Jersey legislation, so it's not really something that we can...
Or we're not allowed to?
Yeah, we have to follow what their compliance is.
Understood.
And they were very strict about only, I think it's 1%, correct, Mr. Astor?
1%, yeah, we have, I think it was 54 students who took the DLM last year.
No, but I mean break it, so we're not allowed to show IEP versus, I guess, Gen Ed students, I don't know, and then AP students, to see where our deficiency lie. I mean, usually it's in the middle grade, right? It's usually the lower performing kids get a lot of help, the higher performing kids are terrific, right?
She's going to show that in the aggregated.
Oh, it comes out
Next
later
coming
on?
slide, she's going to show you the
okay.
aggregated
Sorry,
data. how
thank
it
you.
breaks down.
You could just say shut up.
It's a good
Yeah.
question, though.
I would never, okay. So the next slide shows the aggregated data for English language arts. So you'll see that all of our students, 87% met the cut score, 7.1% of our English learners, so that definitely is a subgroup that we are going to be paying attention to. Our economically disadvantaged students, 83.6% were graduation ready. So it is something that we can kind of celebrate that the district does not have that difference in performance for that subgroup. And our students with disabilities, 52.9% of them were graduation ready. For mathematics, 56.5% were graduation ready, 7.1% of our English learners were graduation ready, 43.8% of our economic disadvantaged students, and students with disabilities, 7.8% were graduation ready.
Oh, so you report only the gen ed students then? Because 56.5 and 56.5 right?
Is
So,
overall.
It's overall. These are the
oh, I'm
breakouts.
sorry,
Those are the
all
actual
students, oh, my
breakdown for just
apologies.
those groups.
So 40, okay, gotcha. English learners, wow, okay.
Yeah.
And I think that when we talk about the English language learners, you know, it's to be said that they're, again, these are beginner students, intermediate, advanced. I was just looking at the ESL student population for the high school. We have 14 ESL students that are seniors. 3 of them are in ESL beginner. They've been here less than 2 years. 11 of them are in ESL advanced, so they're, you know, moving towards that. And there were a lot of students that have, you know, disabilities or that were ESL that had a 722 as their cut score. So the range is there. You know, it goes from students that are significantly short of meeting those standards, you know, but these are things that we've identified, these are students in need, so it's not necessarily going to always match what a standardized assessment's expectation is.
Gotcha, sure.
And I guess this is where you're thrown into the hot seat now, because you have to look at these numbers and be as disturbed or disappointed as we look at these numbers and see math that only 56% of the kids are going to be graduation ready.
I think that there were some data statistics that came out that were a little bit, you know, shocking. I think that my personal and professional opinion is I would like to see all of the students meet the highest level of rigor with all of the success. So I don't necessarily see it as being dismayed, but more of an opportunity for what are we going to do.
And it's troubling to me because I know we had discussed at one point bringing in a new curriculum for language, LAL, in the high school because it's kind of not there right now. It's not a solid program that's in place. And math, we have a solid curriculum and program that's in place, and yet our LAL is scoring very high, and our math is scoring not so good.
So I think that there's 2 ways to look at this. For the English language arts, which I can speak to because I was the English supervisor. Yeah. So the assessment for NJGPA for the English language arts, the 11th grade team really worked together in their professional learning community last year. They sat down, they looked at the test blueprints, they lined their quarterly exams. You know, they were really working well as a team to come together and say, you know, it's not sometimes that the students don't have the ability, it's do they demonstrate that ability during that test. And when you look at data from any standardized test, you have to talk about, did the student value the experience of taking that test, or were they truly demonstrating what they could do? Is there something that's related to writing that is going to prevent them from being able to, you know, demonstrate their reading capabilities because the output sometimes clouds what they're actually able to do? So I think that we're going to look at instructional practices, we're going to look at curriculum, and we're going to look at our buy-in culture for the assessment. The New Jersey GPA, this is the first year that the students are being held accountable for it. Last year they were given it and then it didn't matter.
Yeah.
And the 11th graders, there were several 11th graders that said to their teachers, they're probably not going to count this for us either. So we did have to work against that kind of testing culture as well. So the next slide represents action steps. So what are we going to do for mathematics and for English language arts? So we are going to support the current class of 2024 in demonstrating graduation readiness with intervention courses. We have LAL 12, which is in addition to their English at the high school, so those students will be supported in the fall through that class. We have Math 04, which again is in addition to, or it is a math course because some of our seniors have already completed all their math requirements. So we are going to be providing those in addition to Tier 2 tutoring with Imagine Learning for our students that need a little bit extra support demonstrating the meeting or exceeding expectations for those standards. We are also going to provide our 2024 multilingual learners and our students with IEP with push-in and pull-out support for English and mathematics. And we've dedicated staff members that are going to be working with those. That was the schedule I was working on, as a matter of fact. We are going to be implementing alternate pathway assessments to provide the class of 2024 opportunities to demonstrate readiness. So the state does recognize that the NJGPA cannot be the be-all and end-all of measuring their proficiency. So students can still demonstrate readiness through AccuPlacer, SAT, PSAT, and ACT testing. They eliminated the ASVAB this year. We're not sure why. But Mrs. Sokola has been working with Dr. Maharana and with Mrs. Caprero and myself a little bit in the transition. August 31st, we are going to be offering our first pathway assessment. So we have invited all of the class of 2024 students that did not meet the requirements yet to come in on August 31st, and they're going to take the AccuPlacer exam, and over 77 students have already registered to come in. So they are motivated. So this is an alternate pathway that they can demonstrate their readiness with. Students that pass that exam, and I do believe they're still taking registration for all those hundreds of people that are listening at home, they are, if they demonstrate readiness on August 31st, they don't have to take the LAL 12 or they don't have to take the Math 04 remedial course because they have now demonstrated that, and those results are instantaneous. So we will know September 1st what our true number is of students that we're supporting. We are also working to align our ELA and math course curriculum guides to the NJGPA expectations as needed. I've been working with Dr. Maharana throughout the summer, kind of looking at test blueprints and looking at the standards and where are we and how do our quarterly exams align to that. Is the benchmarking that we're doing accurately representing the students that we need to support? And Mrs. Caprero, who started a couple of weeks ago in districts, and I have already had several meetings as well about what we are going to do with our high school curriculum guides. We are going to begin to use our benchmark linked data for the class of 2025, so the incoming juniors, to identify students needing support before they take it so that we can provide interventions for those students in the fall so that we have fewer numbers next year in this position as a senior. NJSLA Spring 2023 results are also fairly new. The state is rolling out different data points that are going to be released. We had some that were released on August 23rd. We have more data points that are going to be released on September 1st. So I will be able to give you an update next month after we have that. But the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment was administered to all students in grades 3 through 9 in English Language Arts and grades 3 through 8 for mathematics, as well as content courses, Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry. The New Jersey Student Learning Assessment for Science, the NJSLA-S, was administered to students in grades 5, 8, and 11. So we begin with our chart for the NJSLA 2023 science data. So our grade 11, we had 404 students complete the exam. 26.2 met the expectations. Meeting the expectations is defined as earning a 3 or a 4. Grade 8, we had 12.8% of our students. Grade 5, we had 26.7. Percentiles are not provided as this is a norm-based exam. I met with Mrs. O'Connor, the science supervisor, and with Mrs. Francis, our upper elementary supervisor, to discuss these results as well. And there are a couple of challenges related to it. First of all, they don't take the exam every year, so it is a longer-term retention of facts related to science. There is also a lot of writing that goes along with the exam, so when we get to the action steps, we'll talk a little bit more about what we're going to be doing to improve the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment for Science scores. Our next chart represents the results for English Language Arts. And again, we start with ELA 9 at the top. We have the average score in the second column, and if you scan over to the right, the passing percentage is identified in the third to last column from the right. So for English Language Arts 9, we had a 54.30, ELA 8, 45.30, ELA 7, 53.40, ELA 6, 53.7, and you can kind of continue down and see that the pattern stays. We're dancing with that 50% percentage for all of our grade levels. The average scores are the second column from the left, so it can show you the cut score is 750. So in some of our In some of our grade levels, where we have 54.3% of our students in ninth grade that are passing, our average score is 749.79. You know, so we have a broad range of scores that come up with all of our grade levels. This is something that has been a consistent pattern over the past several years. So one of the things that we will talk about is what we are looking at curriculum-wise and what we are looking at with our quarterly exams for English Language Arts, so that we can start to break out of that 50 to 53%. We are also looking at our third grade and our eighth grade curriculum guides and instructional practices and tools, so that we can see why they're dipping down into that 45% range. Breaking it down by our subgroup, so the next slide for you is the percent passing by gender and by the programs that they may be enrolled in, and by that I mean IEP, 504, and multilingual learners, as well as our students who qualify for free and reduced lunch, represented with the economically disadvantaged score breakdown, and then broken down by gender. And these are the terms that the state uses. These are not the terms that the district uses. So if we look at NJSLA 9 in that second column and move across to NJSLA 3, you can see the different percentages for those different subgroups. If we go on to the next slide, we can see our ethnicity grouping breakdowns by subgroup. Again, this is required by the New Jersey Department of Education. So for each of the exams, you're going to see the performance by the ethnic groups that are represented in our districts: Hispanic and Latino, American Indian, Alaska Native, Asian, Black, African American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, white, 2 or more races. Please understand that that is reported by the family. So if it looks like the data of the identification is off, that's not something that we present to the state. Families opt for that when they're enrolling their students. So you can see the number of scores that we had for each of those groups. So for example, NJSLA 9 for ELA, we had 132 students that presented as Hispanic and Latino during enrollment. 34.8% of that group passed. And then I broke it down, the scores that they earned for the test: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5 being exceeding, 4 is a met, 3 is approaching, 2 would be partially, and 1 is did not meet expectations. And I also provided on the top for each grade level what the passing percentage was. So you can see that 34.8% of our Hispanic students that took the test passed, but yet overall, we have a passing percentage of 54.30. So that would be a group that we would look at and see, you know, where are we not able to meet the higher score for those subgroups. So you can just kind of move through. NJSLA 8 is represented, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Counting down for you, sorry. And I know it's a lot of data to take in.
Silly question. Is the way we test for NJSLA and the graduation requirement in 11th grade, if we're hovering around 50% in the NJSLA and we're at over 80% for graduation ready, is the test measuring that different, or are the kids growing that much between 9th grade and their junior year in language arts?
I think it's a combination of things. The level of expectation for rigor, ELA, everyone kind of always assumes it's always reading and it's always writing, but the level, the subtlety of text, the level of the text and what they're expected to do varies. So each grade level will have a different rigor of expectation. Typically, you see a dip somewhere around 7th or 8th grade because the test all of a sudden becomes slightly rigorous, and you'll see that across the state when you look at scores. So when we look at that, it could be that it's that level of rigor, where did the gap start, but it also could be that you had juniors that were very motivated because they knew that their graduation readiness and their scheduled electives were going to be impacted. So it is something that, you know, that comes into play, is, you know, what was the motivation for that. English is a course that they take 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They take English every single year. They don't always have to take mathematics. So some of our juniors, when they were tested, the topics that are covered on the NJGPA are Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry. So some of our students may have not even been in courses that addressed all of those standards. So that level of math course kind of plays in as well, whereas the English Language Arts addresses all of the standards every year. So I think that it's a couple of different ways of looking at the data. I always say that once you start digging in, you could, dig pretty deep. So the math results were a little bit of an eye-opener. It is, I worked in the humanities fields prior to this, so looking at the math results and meeting with Dr. Maharana and talking to Mrs. Francis about what we are going to be doing with our elementary program as well. There were some staggering numbers. I think that when you look at the chart for NJSLA 2023 for the math results, there are certain groups, age levels that we were a little bit concerned about. So Dr. Maharana and I sat down, and we've had several meetings so far, and we've started to talk about what we are going to be doing to address that. Thank you, Dr. Labby. So I know that Math 8 is probably going to draw some attention. So Math 8 is the grade level where we start to really see the difference in the tracks for the math. So the students that are not yet ready for algebra or geometry even at the middle school, those are the students that are taking Math 8, and that number does represent a lot of our subgroups. It represents a lot of our multilingual learners, our students with 504s, our students with IEPs, but it also represents a lot of the students that are in our ASI program and are struggling to meet those standards. So when we get to the action steps, which you'll see, you'll notice that we've already put things in place for mathematics as well. We did have a district goal last year of exceeding 24% for Algebra 1, and we did meet that goal. We were increased to 26.7%. Is it high enough? No, but at least we know we're moving in the right direction. Some of the interventions that we put in place with the curriculum and the staff members, supporting them with being able to increase their rigor or their teaching approach with mathematics, some of those things we're going to be putting in place with other groups as well this year.
I think the goal for, if I remember correctly, the goal for math was for the 8th graders taking Algebra 1.
I thought it was
And
8th and 9th.
No, it was just for the 8th graders, and we did accomplish that.
Yes.
So, it was 54% of the students enrolled in middle school Algebra 1, meeting or exceeding expectations, and we did. I think it was 56% of them, so that's one goal we did accomplish. The problem with the results that you're seeing is it's skewed. It's those kids taking Algebra 1 in the high school in 9th grade, along with the kids in 8th grade taking Algebra 1. So it's kind of skewed there. But over 55% of the kids in 8th grade that were taking Algebra 1 met expectations.
So if you continue on through the slideshow, again.
Wait, I do have a question. So I've noticed, like, even if you look into the individual grades, it looks like the kids in Math 3 are the highest performing group. What are we, and look at Math 4, you're still in the 50s, we're dropping down. So as we go up in grade, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, everything it starts dropping. So what are we doing to maintain, what are our goals to maintain that 3rd grade kids, keeping them above average and, learning math? Because it looks like as you get higher in the grade, the worse you do.
Ms. Grossman's going to address that when she goes into her action steps, but I will say this. One of the stumbling blocks for kids in algebra, and you go ahead and read the research from Stanford University, it's fractions. If we're not able to effectively teach our students fractions beginning in the 3rd grade, but really more importantly in the 4th and 5th grade, they're going to struggle in pre-algebra and they're going to struggle in algebra. Much of mathematics is spiraled. So if you're missing a piece, you can't spiral up.
Yeah, I know. I was a math dummy, so I'm well
And
aware.
unfortunately, some of those kids you're seeing in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, that was 3 years ago, they were receiving synchronous instruction in the 4th and 5th grade during the pandemic. And they might have missed that concrete instruction that they needed in fractions. using number lines to identify that it's a part of a number, and so forth. So we felt there were gaps. And you could see the gaps in the results predominantly of our 7th and 8th and 9th graders.
Yep.
In her action steps, she's going to demonstrate to you, or she's going to communicate to you, how we're going to address those gaps going forward, and how we're going to address that fraction problem as well.
Unless I have the timelines wrong, and I may, this is not a new study, right? Fractions
Yeah.
are the foundation for algebra, right?
The gateway.
Gateway, right. But shouldn't the standardized report cards have fixed that problem? Because they earmark, right, exactly what you're not doing correct?
Well,
Or the student isn't
they can
learning?
identify, the teachers can identify on that the kids are struggling in fractions. Are we addressing that from year to year with these kids? Are we using those standardized report cards? So for instance, when our 6th grade teachers get those standardized or see the standardized report cards for their kids, are they utilizing that information to see, you know what, looks like he didn't do very well in fractions. I'm going to make sure that I cover fractions, or as a whole, and that's something that we have to get better at. As a whole, we got to identify district-wide, are we not teaching fractions the way we should be? Is that something that we really have to focus on? Or is it on an individual basis that Johnny, as compared to Sarah and Sally, just didn't get fractions, so we're going to have to find a way to spend more time teaching him fractions appropriately so he can move forward with pre-algebra and then algebra. But we do know that the best way to teach fractions is through a number line or other manipulatives, concrete. Anything in mathematics, you begin with concrete, and then you work your way up through abstract. And we're seeing nationwide where kids miss that concrete during the pandemic. They miss that ability to concretely understand some of these very important concepts that are going to get very abstract as they advance in mathematics.
So one of the things that you're going to see on tonight's agenda is the district is going to be submitting an application for a grant that is being offered by the state. So across the state, they're identifying that 3rd and 4th grade students are having problems with these fundamental skills. So 2 of the things that have come out since the pandemic are the development of foundational standards in mathematics and foundational standards in English language arts, that we need to look at our K through 3 program so that we can start to address that. The other thing that came out is they've identified 3rd and 4th graders. So you may have even seen, I know NewJersey.com and some other stations carried, 3rd and 4th grade students to get tutoring, was big news over the last several weeks. And that's because the state identified that this particular group of students really struggles. We could provide the instruction that's there, but, it's also what resources were available to the students while they were in those, virtual classrooms for those skills as well.
No, and it's fantastic that we're identifying 3rd and 4th and 5th grade as so mission critical in learning math, because it's true. My concern is the kids that are past that missed that because of the pandemic.
Absolutely.
And that big whopping low number in 8th grade is because those are the kids that were kind of in the middle, that kind of didn't get the extra help that our low kids get, or the exceed the expectations that our AP kids exceed. And what are we doing to get the 8th grader now to understand the building blocks of algebra before they do miserable in 9th grade?
And we've always provided tutoring for our kids. We have always had a math academy at the high school. This year, we're providing that tutoring that was mentioned earlier for the high school students. So we're going to be providing through Edgenuity or Imagine Learning tutoring already for our high school students in language arts and math. But with this grant, we can provide far more tutoring for far more kids. Not only, it's supposed to be for grades 3 and 4, but Ms. Burt will tell you that we're allowed to include all of our students in the tutoring if they need it. But on another scale, I think that Ms. Grossman probably, I don't want to steal all of her thunder, but as part of our action plan, we've mentioned it on many, many occasions, and you've approved these, I think in previous business meetings, we're providing coaching. And we have one company called Teacher to Teacher that will be providing mathematics coaching to all of our K through 3 teachers. And we're asking them to place specific emphasis on the introduction of fractions when they work with all of our teachers on mathematics instruction.
That's great.
But also, you approved this previously too, Dr. Mailu, who is an acclaimed math professor from Rowan University, he is going to be providing coaching up to, I think it's over $80,000 worth of coaching for our 4th and 5th grade teachers on fractions specifically,
That's fantastic.
and then with all of our algebra teachers. That's at the high school as well as at the middle school.
That's great.
So when we looked at it, there's two things that we looked at. You know, you look at your performance data, so you look at the percentages and you look at the grade levels, but you also look at something called evidence-based statements that the state releases, and those break it down to the skills. So on September 1st, we will get reports from the state that say, these are the skills, these are the strategies that these students are really, struggling with. So that data immediately is going to be used in department meetings, and the supervisors are going to be working with their teachers on identifying the student that was a 5th grader, that score. It's not like they're going to go back and take that again, but what do we need to remediate in the beginning of the year so that we know where we can bring those skills back up again? And we'll use our benchmark Lincoln assessment so that we can continue to monitor.
So why don't we go to those action steps?
I was just going to say. So the next several slides are the breakdown of the subgroups. And again, I encourage you at some point to kind of look through those and see. But the action steps, this is what matters. We take the data and what are we going to do with it? So we are going to be providing targeted and consistent professional development. This isn't just a random workshop here or there. But we are really investing resources and time in supporting our teachers in the areas of science, ELA, and mathematics through partnerships with New Jersey Teacher to Teacher that is going to be working with our K through 3 mathematics and our 6 through 12 in writing. For the love of literacy, Dr. Kenny Kuntz's name came up a little bit before, someone I highly respect in the field who is just amazing. And he's going to be working with our English language arts teachers in K through 5, and Dr. Mailu will be working with those targeted, anyone that is kind of prerequisite algebraic thinking and moving into the algebra and algebra 2 teachers as well. We asked for your approval this evening for 2 curriculum riders because Dr. Maharana and I, in looking at our 7th and 8th grade curriculum guides for math, we noticed that there were some gaps in what the students were being assessed. The test changes each year. They add in different sections and they pilot different things. So we noticed that our curriculum needed a little bit of a revision, so we are asking for approval tonight so that we can align that tightly to the NJSLA 8. We are going to implement benchmarking for science in grades 6 through 12, so we can kind of closely monitor the skills, the topics, the strategies that our students are succeeding with, but also needing extra support in science, so that we are able to increase those science scores in 5, 8, and 11. We are starting a district writing initiative because when you look at science scores and when you look at English language arts scores, you know, the writing aspect is the output, okay? So we look at, are these kids able to write on these assessments, and are their reading scores or their science scores, skewed a little bit because they just weren't able to write the answer. So we're going to be looking at writing across the board. We partnered with Rutgers. Dr. Diane Appleby, who is a National Writing Project affiliated professor, is going to be working, I think she's with Fairleigh Dickinson and Rutgers. She's going to be working with our administrative team for English language arts, and then that will be turnkeyed down to our teachers so that we can look at our writing program, and we are going to be developing a district assessment program. Most of our assessments are benchmarking. In fact, all of it is multiple choice, which is called evidence-based selective response, and tech-enhanced responses. So we need to do something where we are assessing our students through writing so that we can see if writing is the problem with them demonstrating the proficiency.
Ms. Grossman, can you go a little bit further in terms of how is writing going to be able to help us in mathematics?
So there's a lot of research that's related to when you write, it activates the same parts of the brain that are with critical thinking skills and with being able to communicate yourself. So part of the questions on the NJSLA, they ask you to identify what the right answer is, and then they please explain how that you got that. And we were talking with our administrative teams over the last several days about how many constructed responses, which is the written portion, and standards and assessment tools for science, social studies, mathematics, and English all include the ability to write. So that's something that we are going to be focusing on. It also benefits their social emotional learning and their executive functioning skills
So
as well.
we have new social studies curriculums that we're looking at.
Yes.
And I think it's fantastic, and I love the direction we're heading. And I hope to see that it doesn't matter if you're in an English class, a social studies class, or a math class, writing is going to be super important and integral in every aspect of a kid's learning, because writing is important as algebra is in a student's growth.
Absolutely.
In fact,
There's also a lot of studies that link literacy with algebraic thinking. So if we can better support the students with their literacy acquisition, the higher a student's lexile is, then there's research that indicates from Carnegie that it impacts their way of algebraic problem solving. And with the history program, in my previous role as the English supervisor, Mr. Howard and I worked hand to hand picking the program that was going to best prepare the students for these assessments that they take as well.
And I believe teacher to teacher that's going to be working with our upper grades in English language arts and science is going to be focusing on writing in those content areas.
Great.
We are also going to be implementing several innovative new programs to increase engagement and performance, such as our Age of Learning, My Reading, and My Math web-based tools in our PK through 2. We are going to be bringing in those Edgenuity courses that I spoke about to increase engagement, but we're also going to be using Edgenuity. We have a lot of students at the high school that come in just before the end of semester 1. And at that point, they can audit courses, but really the motivation isn't there to kind of be engaged in the curriculum because they're not getting credit for that course because they've missed the majority of it. So Mrs. Sokola came up with the idea of using Edgenuity for students that come in after the start of school, but before the end of the first semester. They're going to have access to these online courses with these tutors and engaging material in English and mathematics so that we can look at some skill interventions before they go into their semester 2 courses. So we're excited for that. We are also bringing in for our K-1-2 classes, Hegarty's Phonemic Awareness Program, in looking at the New Jersey Student Learning Standards for foundational reading that are going to most likely be approved and asked for implementation for September of 2024. We wanted to get ahead of it and bring in a program that was going to address the phonemic awareness needs of our students, enhancing Fontes and Pinnell. We are not moving away from Fontes and Pinnell, but we wanted to bring in this program that was going to enhance that. It is science-based reading practices. It is multisensory. It does have its roots in Orton-Gillingham, but this is not considered an interventional program. This is a general education program. We are also going to bring in a Hegarty product for our ASI teachers that they can use to support the students in 2nd and 3rd grade that may still be struggling with those standards. We are going to be providing Tier 2 tutoring through Imagine Learning for our high school identified students. It is a virtual tutoring session, very small groups with certified teachers through Imagine Learning, and it is data-driven tutoring, so we are going to identify what these students need, and they are going to get that at a convenient part in their scheduling of their day. We are also going to implement instructional materials in our math and literacy academies because we have wonderful plans in place for intervention, but we wanted to look at whether it was, we were monitoring enough progress and whether it was consistent across all of the schools, what was being done in our literacy and our math academies. So we are bringing in Wiley Blevins for our English language arts academies in K through 3, phonics to reading program that the academy teachers will use before school and after school for identified students. And in grades 4 through 5, they will be using Sadlier's Progress ELA, which we started a few years ago at the middle school in grades 6 through 8, and we saw very successful results in intervention teaching. And we are also looking at materials for the mathematics academies. So,
Excellent job. Any
Yeah.
questions for
No,
Ms. Grossman?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. It really, our math scores are horrible, so we really need to focus in on that. And like I said, it looks like the third and fourth graders are doing better, so if we could focus on them, I mean, I know we have to worry about people graduating, but we also have to make sure that the younger kids keep that stability, keep going higher, instead of dropping down to 5% in eighth grade, because that's pretty sad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I mean, all of our scores are sobering, particularly our math scores, but we're prepared. I think we have a great action plan to address the areas that we can see clearly that need improvement. Our theme for this year is innovate to accelerate. Last year, we went into the school year off of the pandemic with back to business. This year, it's innovate to accelerate. And I think we have modeled that in the 2 board meetings we've had this year in terms of the innovative resources and programs that we're providing to try to accelerate improvement in all of our students and advance their outcomes, especially in the areas in which you see here highlight that we have some deficiencies. So no one on this administration would disagree with you that our scores definitely need improvement across the board, but particularly in mathematics, but we are clearly up to the challenge.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Grossman.
thank you, Ms.
I'm very impressed. I want to know how you remember all of those names and all of those tests and what all that stuff means, so.
30 years.
Excellent. Yes, well, I keep forgetting now, so it's, okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All righty, does anybody have any questions, any other questions for Ms. Grossman? No? Okay, we will move on to board discussion. Finance and Infrastructure Committee. Ms. Pabon, are you?
Erin's going to give the,
Okay, right.
The committee met on August 8th, and they discussed a lot of updates on the referendum projects and the current statuses. Of, I think, interest to most people here, there were a few things on tonight's agenda, including lighting upgrades at the stadium at the Sayreville War Memorial High School, as well as audio upgrades to the grandstand at the stadium, and most importantly, the theater audio upgrades at the
that
Sayreville War
better
Memorial
happen
High
before
School.
the state.
Excuse me?
I was going to say the speakers better get improved for theater before the state.
Well, we're planning on doing all that work in June of 2029.
Hey! No, but it'll be great with the plays, that they can
Absolutely.
sound better.
And then other than that, it was just updates on the ongoing projects. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Personnel, are you going to give that one as well, Ms. Hill?
I was not there.
No, I think Mr. Callahan's going to do that.
Oh, Mr. Callahan's going to do personnel.
I could do it. We discussed all those great assignments and job opportunities that are now being filled. And, right, I think that was. That was very good.
Wasn't this another busing or?
Oh, yes. Well, we had all the positions. Personnel discussions. Yes, thank you.
Great report, Chris.
But,
What do you call it,
yeah,
personnel?
I think that was it. I didn't know they were going to throw that on me.
That's okay.
You're welcome.
Should have been her.
All righty.
been
Governance, Ms. Napolitano?
That was me. We discussed and reviewed the new and revised BOE policies and regulations that are on the agenda for your approval. Next, we discussed the collaborative federal desk monitoring corrective action plan for our federal grants that are also on the agenda for your approval. And lastly, we discussed plans to name the Sayreville War Memorial High School Music Suite after John Bon Jovi, which the board directed Dr. Labby via a verbal motion to facilitate back in December of 2022.
Okay. Anything else? Any questions?
Better job than
Okay.
Callahan.
Student achievement, is Mr. Fernandez going to give a virtual report? Or?
I think so. Mr.
Thank you,
Fernandez?
Madam President. I'll be brief because Ms. Grossman was very short in her explanation and didn't give a lot of detail. So I'm going to expand. It'll be hard to expand on what you did, but we did discuss changes to the 4th and 5th grade social studies curriculum due to Department of Education mandates for climate change and Holocaust commemorative. We also discussed auto shop as a full year course for shop 3. We also discussed adding ASL with a synchronous component. And we also discussed, due to the shortage of teachers, hiring an emergency Spanish teacher, giving her an emergency certification to be able to update. We also discussed esports, which was very exciting, and Ms. Grossman covered the rest of it, so.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Fernandez?
No.
Okay. Middlesex County School Boards, the only thing is what I said earlier, that we do have our dates. If there are any date changes, I will let you know. You can always sign up for this online, but I should point out that if you sign up, we get charged, right, Ms. Hill, for these meetings?
Well, it depends on, there are some meetings that there's charges and others there
Okay.
is not.
Okay. But again, if you sign up and then you can't make it, like, let us know. So if it is a charge, we don't get charged, okay? That's it for school boards. Back to Mr. Fernandez. Sayreville South Amboy Rotary, any news from there?
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, the Sayreville South Amboy Rotary is proud to announce that we're going to be donating 50 backpacks to the Sayreville School District and 50 to the South Amboy School District as well. That's it.
Very nice.
That's
Thank
very
you.
nice, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Now we open for public participation on agenda items only. Anybody from the public like to speak on agenda items only? Mr. Black, so nice to see you.
Hello, everybody. Fred Block, 25 Calliope Road. I have to say, you know, all these years, today was the day that I came to the realization that test taking was just to flunk students. It wasn't just to flunk students, I should say. Ms. Grossman, your presentation was very good. I have to say, a lot of detail, but I'm a numbers guy. And I want to acknowledge something that's very important, right? Yes, the math numbers are definitely a concern, right? But I want you to know I was a product of being pushed through at a very early age and not understanding fractions and some of the basic fundamentals. And had that gotten caught earlier, I think it would have been a lot easier for me to excel in math, which I never did, instead of trying to catch up consistently through my school years to get where I needed to be. So I never did really good in math, I admit it. I'm probably still not very good at math. But it's very good to know that we acknowledge the issue and that there's an action plan in place to try to correct that, right? So I think that for me, if someone had caught that early on, I probably would know a little bit more about math. And it wouldn't have been so hard for me. So anyway, wanted to acknowledge that, you know, knowing is half the battle, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Mr. Black, can you balance your checkbook?
Barely.
That's all that counts.
Renee can.
I'm married, so I have help.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing no one else from public, we will close public. And now we will move to Dr. Labby for the superintendent.
Okay, I will be brief.
Famous last words. I will be brief.
All right, so number 14 on page 3, we're asking to approve the grant that was referenced earlier by Ms. Grossman. Ms. Burt has been working very, very hard. She's actually got a committee together. They'll be finalizing that application for the high-impact tutoring grant. We can receive up to $230,000, so she is really working hard with her team to write an incredible grant application for us. Number 16 and 17, you can find on page 3 and 4. We're entering in an agreement with Elevate K-12 for professional services related to Tier 1 live teaching for Spanish in grade 3. We mentioned it during our Student Achievement Committee meetings. We're having a serious problem finding Spanish teachers. In fact, Ms. Grossman remarked at one of our meetings that Montclair, which used to really feed school districts with Spanish teachers, graduated one Spanish teacher last year from their program. So school districts across the state are having a really difficult time staffing their world languages programs. Now, we don't do ourselves any favors here in this district because we appoint or promote our Spanish teachers to become administrators. So we're not helping ourselves either, but those two administrators are exceptional and very deserving of that. But we weren't able to secure up to date a live in-person approach with regard to third grade. We don't have a physical teacher to do it. So we're going with virtual model. They will provide synchronous instruction while the teacher's in the classroom to help out the kids for Spanish. Hopefully, at some point, we'll be able to find another Spanish teacher so we can do that in person, which is by far the most effective. But until then, we're going to use, asking you to approve Elevate K-12 so we can do that model. Likewise, we did our best to find an American Sign Language teacher, but we weren't able to do that, and I know how important that was for the board to offer American Sign Language. We put out a survey, and we had about 30, 40 kids, respond that they would be interested, and so when we went ahead and had kids register for classes, I think we had 26 kids that registered. 26 kids registered for American Sign Language. So we did our best to find an actual person to do that, but we couldn't. However, what we did find was a very gifted staff member who is an interpreter and very proficient in American Sign Language. She's not a certified teacher, but she's proficient in it. So during this class, this special education teacher will be in the classroom as we provide synchronous virtual instruction in American Sign Language. So you'll have the person on the screen teaching the sign language class, taking care of the grading and everything like that, but you'll have the teacher in the classroom that's assisting them with the actual physical movements necessary for American Sign Language. So we're really happy to be able to provide this class for our students. Numbers 18 through 20, you can find on page 4. We're contracting with Generation Services for upgrades to the auditorium. We mentioned that previously, so Ms. Hill mentioned that at the high school in the amount of $108,703, we'll be upgrading the audio system in the auditorium. The stadium lighting is going to cost about $300,000. And then we had a lot of feedback, literally and figuratively, when we do our graduations. Parents complain that there's an echo in the PA system. When they go to football games, there's an echo. Sometimes it's hard to hear. So we're also going to be replacing the audio system in the stadium as well for $42,000. Numbers 21 and 22, which you can find on page 4, we're purchasing one pickup truck for the maintenance department. It's a replacement, and then one for our transportation department. Numbers. Oh, they're both for maintenance. I'm sorry. So we still haven't. We're still looking for the transportation. So these are both for the transportation department. Number 30 and 55, which you can find on page 5 in the addendum. As Ms. Hill mentioned earlier, we rejected all of the bids that were given to us on June 9th for the entire transportation complex because they were far too high. So we decided to go ahead and build just for the site development. To our chagrin and serious disappointment, those bids were also far too high for us. So we are rejecting the bids that we opened on August 22nd for just the site development. Number 32, which you can find on page 6, we're asking you to approve a bus advertisement. Years ago, we went toward advertising on our buses. We figured that as we increase our fleet, we'll be able to generate close to $65,000 in that, and this gives us some money. So we're looking forward to hopefully getting more people to advertise on our buses. We have more buses to do so. This could be a great way to generate revenue for us. And as you all know, you heard me say this before, we love to be able to generate our own revenue in the school district. So that's a real important thing, and we're real happy that businesses are now looking forward to advertising once again on buses. And we'd like to thank the Sabert Corporation. They do so much for us, but just recently they went ahead and donated containers to the Bombers Beyond Cafe, valued at $115 a case for a total of $575. So we can't thank them enough. Number 51, which you can find on the addendum, we're asking you to purchase equipment and services for the security radio upgrades. This is something we've had in our strategic action plan. We've been looking to do to get all of our administrators and campus security monitors on the most advanced dual, what do we call it, dual?
This is actually going to take us off of having to split multiple bands. This is going to put
dual bands, right?
This is going to put the entire district on multiple channels, but on a single radio system.
Perfect, and it would greatly enhance security. Thank you, Eric, for that clarification.
It's also a shared radio system with the borough, so we have some interoperability communications there.
So we'll
as well.
all be able to radio into the first responding services, correct?
Anyone that we choose to give that permission to, basically.
Great, excellent. And this will also increase our ability district-wide, so anybody from anywhere in the district can radio somebody.
Correct. Instead of using school-based radios, we're going to move on to the same system as the town and the county. So basically, the radios will operate throughout the county.
So to give you an example, I could be on my radio and I could radio the principal of the Silver School, and then radio the principal of the Cheesequake School, which is what we've never been able to do before. So this is something that will, greatly enhance security. Any questions on anything I covered through finance and infrastructure?
Dr. Labby, was there any issues with the SEA on the virtual Spanish teacher?
I have not heard any yet.
Okay, just the question.
Yep. Okay, so let's go to move to student achievement. Again, much of this has been mentioned, but I'll just highlight the major motions here. Beginning with number 1, we're asking you to approve new and revised curriculum guides. And Ms. Grossman mentioned those earlier, as well as Mr. Fernandez did during his report. That's on page 19. On pages 19 and 20, we're asking you to approve 2 memorandums of understanding, one with Rider University, and that's for our Tomorrow's Teachers Honors Course program at the high school, and one is for the memorandum of agreement with Middlesex County College for our high school dual enrollment scholars program. And Ms. Grossman shared during our Student Achievement Committee that we're very close to having a program next year where not only can our kids get dual enrollment credits, they can actually earn an associate's degree, I believe in humanities? Liberal arts. So think about that. Our students now can graduate not only with a high school diploma, with an associate's degree in liberal arts. So that's something also that the board had requested, and I give a great deal of credit to Ms. Grossman for taking such a strong and direct approach with Middlesex County College that it looks like it's going to yield great results for us next year. Any questions on those items or anything else on student achievement? I'll move along to governance now, numbers 3 and 4, which you can find on page 22. We're asking you to approve our integrated pest management report that Mr. Colemansberger submits every year, as well as the 2023-2024 district professional development and mentoring plans that Ms. Burt was very hard at work on over the past 2 months. Numbers 5 and 7, which you can also find on pages 22 and 23, we're asking you to approve new and revised policies and regulations for second reading and adoption. That's because you read them for the first time back in July. But then we're asking you to relax one of our bylaws so that you can go ahead and adopt policies tonight after a first reading. And you can see those policies. One is because of a new sick leave legislation. We need that, and one is for our threat assessment teams. And the other one is because of the corrective action plan that was referenced earlier with, the federal government, the collaborative federal desk monitoring corrective action plan. We needed to have policies on Title I parent engagement for every single one of our schools. So we're asking you to approve those. We don't normally do this. We normally ask you to approve things twice, a first reading and a second reading. But those particular ones, we're asking you just to read once and adopt. And then finally, we do have several other policies revisions that we're asking you to approve for a first reading during this meeting, but then we'll ask you to approve for a second reading and adoption in September. Number 8, which you can find on page 23, there's the aforementioned collaborative federal desk monitoring corrective action plan that we're asking you to approve. We actually have to submit that to the Department of Education by Friday. And number 10, we're asking you to approve a new part-time secretary food services job description. Any questions on those motions or anything else on governance?
I don't have a copy of the integrated pest management report.
It is on our website if you'd like to see
okay.
it. It's the same.
I always like to see
it's
how
the
we're
same
integrating our
report, so
pests.
I did not share it with you guys, but it is, as all the attachments are, it's on the website. But I do apologize for that,
Okay,
Mrs.
no
Brown.
problem. Thank you. Like to keep an eye on our
Just
pests.
don't read that before bed because you'll be out cold.
Yeah, no.
No
I'll read it-
offense, Mr.
I'll read it in
Colemanberger,
the morning.
but he always does a great job with those integrated pest management reports. You got to read his lead testing report. Oh, my goodness. You talk about some riveting reading.
Heavy stuff, right?
All right, so We do have one of those bittersweet moments that we normally do, Mr. Walsh. And we are asking you to approve or to accept the retirements of some beloved staff members. So I'll begin with Cynthia Cords. She's a special education teacher at the high school, and her retirement will be effective February 1st, 2024. Throughout her 25-year career in education, Ms. Cords dedicated almost 20 years to Sayreville War Memorial High School. During her time there, she was committed to the special education program and was an incredible advocate for our students with disabilities. She was a mentor to new teachers in the department and consistently collaborated with her colleagues to align goals and plans to make teaching more efficient. Her passion for mathematics was demonstrated in her instruction every day. She contributed her expertise through writing multiple curriculum guides for both the general education and special education programs. Students respected her teaching methods and developed a better understanding of real-world math applications. We wish Ms. Cords the best in her retirement and her time with her family, particularly her granddaughter and her beloved dogs. And I did have the opportunity to work very closely with Ms. Cords when I was the interim principal at the high school many moons ago. And she's just exemplary. She's the consummate professional, and she's incredibly dedicated to the students that she serves so well. Next, we're asking you to approve the retirement of Camille Savilli, also a very dedicated employee of ours for many, many years, and she's a paraprofessional right now, a full-time paraprofessional at the Arla School, and she'll be retiring effective January 1st, 2024. Camille Savilli has been in the Sayreville School District since 2001. It has been a wonderful experience having Ms. Savilli as one of our devoted paraprofessionals. She has served the students of Sayreville and treats every student as if they are part of her family. Camille has worn many hats in this district. She has worked one-on-one with students, assisted in small and whole class groups, and has supervised students during arrival and dismissal. She greets students in the morning with a cheery, "Good morning. How are we doing today?" Her genuine concern for the students is evident in everything she does. She carries out her daily tasks with kindness and dedication. Ms. Savilli genuinely cares for students and their success. She is always eager to learn new techniques to help inspire the children or classroom to which she is assigned, offering to help even if the task at hand is not officially in her job description, and always adapting to the culture of the classroom while also adding her own special touch to everything she does. Ms. Savilli will surely be missed by all the teachers and staff at the Arla School, as well as across the district, by the way. We have been blessed with her spirit of generosity and understanding, and we wish her all the best in the next exciting chapter of her life. Ms. Savilli has helped so many students of Sayreville transition into new situations with utter ease. We hope that this next transition of her life will be filled with lots of fun adventures with her husband, daughter, and her son. And I, too, had, again, the opportunity to work closely with Ms. Savilli when I was the interim at the Arla School many other moons ago. And, again, I was just awestruck by her dedication, her work ethic, and just one of the nicest people with such a pleasant demeanor. And when I say here the way she greeted kids, I mean, you could see the kids light up as soon as she was there to take them off the bus and welcome them to another school day. So we wish her all the best in her retirement, too. And then finally, Miss Eileen Seeger, she is the guidance secretary at the Sayreville Middle School, and that will actually be effective in a couple of days, September 1st. In 2002, over 20 years ago, Eileen Seeger found her home away from home, first in the main office at the Sayreville War Memorial High School, and then in the middle school guidance office. A Sayreville native, Eileen raised her 4 children in Sayreville. She has always exemplified the true nature and spirit of a Sayreville farmer. Eileen has consistently been an integral member of the team, with organizational support and serving as the face of the guidance department for students and their families. Always smiling, dedicated, hardworking, and thorough, Eileen went out of her way to lend a helping hand to everyone, including pitching in to help the other offices, and always stepping up when needed. Her colleagues fondly nicknamed her Eager Seeger. Eileen was often at the front gate selling football tickets and behind the scenes working hard for the awards night and graduations. Eileen loves all things Snoopy and Halloween, and has a keen interest in Salem, Massachusetts. She has made each office her home with her own set of decorations, creating a warm and welcoming environment. If you have ever attended the high school barbecue, Eileen's hard work, creativity, and dedication were certainly always evident. We are very sad that Eileen is leaving us, and we will certainly miss her unwavering support. We wish Eileen a long, happy, healthy retirement, enjoying her beautiful grandbabies and her puppies, Jenny and Luna. And again, Eileen is someone through my 9 years that I've had the opportunity to work with pretty closely, and she's just a wonderful person. Always positive, always upbeat, and always willing to help you out in any way, shape, or form. Again, like we said here, everything that she got involved in, she left it all there. She gave her everything in everything she did. So we're sad that she's leaving us, but we're happy that she's going to be able to spend that precious time with her family. And on behalf of all of the students and staff in the Sayreville Public Schools, we wish each one of these individuals an amazing retirement, and we thank them for the outstanding service that they provided to our district, their schools and departments, and of course our students. Okay,
May
moving
I,
on in
Dr.
personnel.
Rafi, before you move on?
Sure.
May I just add, I have worked with all three of these ladies. Special ed teachers are the best in the world. Cynthia always was dedicated to her students. Camille Sayreville, you may not know this, was the secretary at the high school who used to call me up to sub back in 1993 when I first started. And she was always kind.
She might have called me in
She
1993.
was always, she may have, because that was her job back then. And her mom also worked in the
Eisenhower.
office.
Eisenhower.
Yeah, her mom was at Eisenhower. So Camille and I go way back. And Eileen, as with Patty, 2 words, kind and efficient.
Yeah.
Eileen, absolutely the best person, and we wish her a long and happy, healthy retirement to all of the ladies.
Yeah. God bless all three of them. Anything else? No? So numbers 11 and 12, as well as 44 and 45. As you can see, Dr. Aguiles, Ms. Flanagan, and our entire Human Resources Office has been very hard at work hiring new certificated and non-certificated staff for this school year. You can find all that on pages 27 and 29 in the addendum. Likewise, numbers 13 and 16, as well as 46 and 47, there's been a little shuffling going on. So we're asking you to approve some transfers, some certificated and non-certificated transfers for this school year. And that can be found in pages 29, 31, as well as the addendum. And then finally, number 38, we're asking you to approve a new 4-year contract for the superintendent of schools. And that would begin on July 1, 2023, and end on June 30, 2027. And with that said, it's required, since I do have a current contract, and I'm asking you to renew during my current contract. According to statute, we have to conduct now a public hearing on my contract, so I don't know what you need to do, Ms. Hill, with regard to opening that.
That would just be Mrs. Bloom would open up for the public, specifically concerning Dr. Bobby's
Yeah,
contract.
you have to have a hearing, a set hearing, similar like a budget hearing for the superintendent's contract under
Thank you, Mr. Bush.
18A, 12-15, I think it is.
So do we,
18A 1111, excuse me.
oh, so
So you could just.
you just need to do a motion.
Yeah,
Okay, so I need a motion to open for public on your...
for a hearing on the superintendent's contract.
Okay. So I need a motion for a hearing on the superintendent's contract.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
All those in
Oh,
favor?
Eli, like,
I didn't know where that was coming from.
The voice of God.
All those in favor?
Okay, Eloy, that's a little creepy because you're a disembodied voice right now. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed?
Any comments?
Okay, so
now-
now you're open to the public as if it's a hearing on the budget, for example, where people are permitted to come and speak as to the superintendent's contract only. And then, after that's over, you would close the hearing, and the board would go on to its vote.
Okay. Is there anyone in public that would like to speak to the superintendent's contract? Seeing none, shall we close public? Okay, we'll close public. And next step?
Jonathan, do we need a separate approval for his
No,
contract, or
as
just
long
with
as,
our?
it's okay to do it all together, but
Okay.
as long as it's very clear that it's a roll call vote. Obviously, all personnel would be anyway, but as long as it's clear, and if someone were to vote one way or the other, it just has to be very clear in your minutes ultimately.
So we just need a motion to accept the superintendent's report.
Okay, so now we need a motion to accept the superintendent's report. Ms. Pabon? Second. Mr. Walsh? I almost said Callahan.
Lucy, I think we need,
My doppelganger.
do we need a motion to approve these on the first reading?
It doesn't have to be, it's assumed that it's first reading. If you're doing something that's first reading, to vote on it in and of itself is a first reading. It doesn't
Yeah,
have to
but
be.
this is first in adoption on a first reading. And our policy is normally two
Well,
readings.
The motion says to suspend that bylaw.
Yeah,
You see
do
that?
we need a motion to suspend the bylaws to adopt?
No,
No,
because it's
it's in the motion.
Because it's
Okay.
in the motion
Okay.
itself. Yeah,
Okay.
as long as it's clear in the motion itself, it doesn't make a difference.
Okay, Mr. Callahan,
On the superintendent contract?
on the whole
On
agenda?
everything, and let me just say this before we, if we can, I'm sorry,
Sure.
Ms. Silva. As you're voting, some of you may be conflicted, I know that there's some conflicts, so just say, I abstain as to, and I think, what item number is the superintendent's contract?
38.
Number 38, so you could just say, Mr. Callahan, to the extent that you need to abstain on that,
Number 38 and abstain from number 47.
and then yes on the others, or no on the others?
Yes on everything else.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that was number 38 in
And number
personnel, and
47.
47, is that personnel as well?
Yes.
Okay. And yes on everything else?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Esposito?
I'd like to vote with comment, if I may. You okay with that, Lucy? You have to be okay with it. Just say yes.
I will defer to Ms. Hill. Do we vote with comment, Ms. Hill?
Well, you didn't have a board discussion, so you had the motion, the second, then you went to a vote. So I think you should allow for someone to, if you're not going to have a board member comment, we've already had somebody's vote, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
Mr.
thank you. Anthony's fine.
Esposito, go
It's-
for it.
Okay, thank you. It's no secret that Dr. Labby and myself have been at odds over the last 6 months or so with how this district is moving forward. My two major concerns have been the path we're taking with curriculum, although I'm happy what I heard this evening, I really am, and one of the clauses in Dr. Labby's contract that he can work from home at his sole discretion. I don't believe...
It's not what it says. It says, I can work remotely.
Remotely, yes. Isn't that...
No. I work remotely when I go to conferences. I work
Record-
remotely
let
when
the
I'm on
record reflect
vacation.
remotely. That's fine. I don't believe, is part of that at home then?
Excuse me?
Part of that could be at home.
Part of it could be at home,
Okay. So then I'll, for the sake of this
including when I'm
argument-
sick and including when I'm on a vacation day or a
Gotcha.
personal day.
Yeah, we all do that. I don't believe a superintendent should work from home, and I understand the other times you work remotely. And there are always exceptions, of course, family issues, illness, et cetera. Our superintendent is responsible for approximately 10,000 people, students and staff. If the administrative staff, our teachers and support staff are required to be here every day, I believe the person leading them should be also. When I discuss this with other people, if there was in the event of a tragedy befalling the district, a bus crash, an incident where a student's injured in a fight, a fire, et cetera, I was told that Dr. Labby would not be running into a burning building. I concede that to be true. However, if I were a parent of a child or a spouse of a staff member, I would want the person in charge of the district to be here if that should ever occur. I was also surprised to learn that Dr. Labby worked from home / remotely at his discretion. My guess is that this has been happening, I guess, since COVID, but I'm not sure. I won't say for sure. To the best of my knowledge, nobody on this board knew about it or approved it. In case anyone was confused about the issue, Dr. Labby reports to this board, and this board should have been notified that this was occurring. Excuse me. I did, because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just my personal opinion on working from home in that position. I did reach out to other districts, superintendents, retired, still working. Every person responded in the affirmative, that when asked if this is occurring now, or if they would permit this in their district, they would say, no, absolutely not. Okay. So, one other item that we butted heads on, and,
I just want, Mr.
yeah.
I just want to say one thing.
Sure.
And I don't necessarily know that, we've had such, and I think everybody knows this, including you, especially as a board president. I just want to make sure that there's no, that we don't obviously delve into personnel. If we're only talking about the contract itself and the language in the contract, that's okay, because that's what's before the board right now. But I just want to make sure that that's clear. I know, Anthony, I know you know that. I just want to make sure that for everyone's sake, as you're voting and making comments to the extent that that's the case, okay?
Right.
We don't want to evaluate the superintendent in public.
No, I understand that. No, of course not.
I know
but-
you know that. I just
No,
want to make sure.
no,
that's-
no, thank you for pointing that out, but I can bring up something that was brought on other
It's just, as long as it's not evaluated
meetings,
of his,
public meetings.
of his performance.
Understood. No, of course not.
Yeah, if it's related to contract language, it's one thing.
Got it, understood. Okay, so I will jump at the risk of doing that, and I don't think I did, but I will just jump to something else, okay? So, look, I don't have a degree in education. However, I think asking questions about decisions that don't make sense to me, such as how we're splitting the curriculum from pre-K to second and third to 12th, is a valid question and should have been answered. Traditionally, we all know it's elementary and secondary, right, K through 5, 6 through 12, and I just don't believe I got a satisfactory answer to why we're going this route, okay? And keep in mind, again, I went on numerous districts, because, again, I don't know if this is something, we do or don't, if this is the norm or people that do it. It seems that we're the only district to do it, and quite frankly, even though I'm happy to hear what we heard today, I don't think we have a good enough track record to be confident that such an unorthodox method will benefit our students. Look, I believe Dr. Labby cares tremendously about our staff and our kids. However, he doesn't like to be questioned, and that's too bad. Hold on,
That's not the contract.
hold on.
Anthony.
When the, okay, no, when the
wanna-
residents elect us, we were given a responsibility to ask tough questions and hold people accountable, okay? And I can look every person in this district in the eye and tell them that I have their best interests at heart, as I'm sure every board member here does. But I do ask several questions every major decision. How will it benefit our students? How will it benefit our staff, and how will it affect our taxpayers? And quite honestly, because of the reasons and the curriculum that I will not delve into in detail, I'm just going to vote no on item 38, page 39. Everything else, yes, Erin.
Mr. Fernandez?
I'd like to vote with a comment as well, if possible. And in all due respect to Mr. Esposito, I respect you tremendously, and I know your comments come from the heart, and they're genuine, and they're coming with the best of intentions. So please understand when I disagree with you on certain points. From my own perspective, I've seen Dr. Labby work remotely, specifically sending out emails on 4th of July, on holidays, on vacations. I don't think he's ever taken a holiday or a vacation. So from my own perspective, I've already known he was working remotely because he was simply working on days that we were off anyway. We're in 2023 now, especially post-pandemic. Most jobs now have transitioned. I know this is something that maybe wasn't around a couple of years ago. But now my profession, most of our professions, we're working remotely now. This is something that's moving forward, and we're moving with the times. And how does this benefit our district, and how does it benefit our students and our community? When we have a superintendent driving an hour and a half to and from each way every day, when he doesn't need to be here on a specific day, that's time that's lost. That's unproductive time. That's time that I know Dr. Labby isn't going to wait an hour and a half to start his day. He's going to start his day an hour and a half earlier and end it an hour and a half later. That's 3 extra hours of benefit that our district and our students are receiving. I mean, I can go on for a long time, but you asked how I feel it benefits the district. Those are just some of the things that I've pointed out. Based on his history and his dedication to our district, I fully believe that he will be working remotely because he has done before, and he's already proved it without even being asked. So that's why I'm voting resoundingly yes. And again, with all due respect, I know your heart's in the right place. I just happen to disagree with you on this issue, but I know your intention and your heart are in the right place. So my vote is yes.
And that was yes on the whole agenda?
Yes, correct. Yes on everything.
Mrs. Napolitano?
Yes.
Mrs. Pabon?
I will be voting with comment as well. I'm very shocked that Anthony Esposito has indicated that no one on this board was aware of Dr. Labby's work schedule. Every Sunday, we get an email from Dr. Labby.
I said
Yeah, you did.
remotely.
You said remotely.
Remote.
I think when he emails us on Sunday, he's emailing us from his home. When he emails us at 11 o'clock at night, he's emailing us from home, remotely. Okay, Dr. Labby has been dedicated to this district. He is here right now, and it is 9:10 at night, okay? If anybody really kept track of or if even Dr. Labby kept track of his own hours, he would be doing 3 people's worth of work. So for you to get up here and say that no one on this board knew of anything, work being done remotely, is a false statement. We all know what's done remotely because we get those emails, and we also get phone calls and other updates that come that something happened, and Dr. Labby is letting the public, the parents, everybody know. So Dr. Labby, regardless of where he works from, works at 1,000%, okay? He works hard. The children love him. Not every parent may love him, but that doesn't matter. The kids love him, and he has a very good rapport with the staff and those people that he leads. And I do think that to make a big stink about him working remotely is kind of ridiculous, since he's been doing that for many, many years, ever since you've been on the board. And how long have you been on the board? 12 years, I think? So for you not to notice that in 12 years, how observant are you? That's what I got to say. So,
Observant to
all
what?
I will, observant to remote work.
I'm not talking Saturday and Sunday.
Oh,
I'm
why?
talking
Well, no.
7:30
That is
to
remote work.
4:30.
Remote is remote. Remote is remote. And when you say to somebody, you're allowed to work on your own dime all the time, go ahead, work from home, we don't care. But the minute they ask to work from home, and they ask with not just doing it, but they actually ask for it, and then you say, oh, wait a minute, you're working remotely? That's not allowed. That's kind of hypocritical to me. So I vote yes. I am glad that we are able to extend Dr. Labby's contract. And just not that long ago, you were happy about it too. You were actually making plans to make it happen. So I find your statements very hypocritical. And that's all I got to say is thank you, Dr. Labby, for agreeing to extend your contract. Thank you for what you do for the children of Sayreville, and we do appreciate you more than you could imagine. Thank you very much. My vote is absolutely yes.
And that's yes on all agenda items?
That is yes on all agenda items.
Mr. Smith?
Keep it simple. Yes on all items.
Mr. Walsh?
I will vote without a comment, yes to everything.
And Mrs. Blue?
That's a comment. That's a comment and a comment. Unfortunately, I am required to abstain on the superintendent's contract because I am conflicted, so therefore I must abstain. And also, under personnel, on page 37, number 30, I will abstain on the first candidate for the Saturday detention teachers.
Okay, and that was yes on all
And
of our
yes on
items?
everything else.
Thank you.
Do we now need a, what do we, oh, now we open to public again?
Or I think you have comments too.
No, you do public first.
Yeah,
on anything.
public.
Public first, and then any other comments by the
Oh,
board.
okay. Does anybody else have anything they would like to add?
Well, you, public first, please.
Oh, public first? I'm sorry, guys. She's new. I'm a little rattled tonight. Okay. We'll open up to members of the public who would like to speak on any matters before the board. Anybody? No? Okay.
No one
Seeing none?
online?
I beg your pardon?
Anyone online?
Nobody online. They're all sleeping already. Okay, so therefore, we will close public. And any comments on anything else from anybody here?
I have a comment. I would like to say that, as the board, we are supposed to keep things confidential. And there was recently things leaked to the public. Who leaked them, we don't know. But apparently, there was things about Dr. Labby's contract leaked to the public. So going forward, I think we all should commit to the oath that we took, and we should remain confidential and not have any kind of ethical violations by sending information that should not be public to the public before it's ready. And that's all I got to say, and I hope that that does not happen again.
And I'd like to make a comment. Mr. Esposito, you're entitled to make whatever comment you want to make about my contract here in this public forum. And once we go ahead and share my contract with the public, which I did last Monday, I put it on our website. But I'm so happy that you took the time in public so that everybody could hear that you went ahead and shared confidential information about my contract before the full board even saw it with other board presidents in this county or wherever. And I'm glad you just corroborated that ethical violation that you did.
You're welcome.
It speaks volumes about you as a person and as a board member.
You're the only superintendent in New Jersey doing it, so.
Again,
I
you
just
you
needed to make sure
violated,
of that.
you violated my confidentiality, and you just admitted to it in public.
Good.
Again, rule number one, you don't violate people's confidentiality, and you did it. And why don't you also tell people the biggest difference that we had is that you tried to strong-arm me in handpicking a person for the assistant superintendent position. And you can shake your head no, and you
I
can
was
deny
gonna
that
go
all you
into
want.
that. I was
But
gonna go
the
into that.
critical juncture that you and I disagreed with one another
Yeah.
is not anything other than the fact that you wanted me to hire a specific person,
I didn't care
and
who
I
you
told you
hired.
that is not your responsibility as a
You're
board
right,
member.
and you're
You
absolutely
don't
right.
tell me who to hire.
You're absolutely right, but we had a disagreement on the level that bring the
And
a
I
person in.
go
right?
ahead and do a Google search. What is early childhood? It's preschool through second grade. Because other districts don't go ahead and separate their programs that way, I can't answer that. Early childhood is from preschool through second grade. Instruction and learning takes a whole new approach with third grade through 12th grade.
So nobody else in New Jersey knows this but us?
I'm not going to answer that question. I don't know that. I can't speak for anybody else.
And neither can Anthony. None of us are on
I go on
all
the
bo-
websites.
None of us are on all the boards.
You don't
Just
have
like
to
you're
be.
privy to confidential information on this board, they are confident, they are privy to their own confidential
But you don't have to
information.
be. You can go on
Yeah,
their,
you do.
you go on
You're-
their
you're
website and
gonna-
you see what the
no one
curriculum
knows
is
everything that's
disseminated.
Savone has the floor.
No one knows everything that's discussed or planned in other districts, certainly not you. You barely could keep up on your own district. So you're not going to be able to speak about other districts and what they do. And what other districts do is not what we're voting on. We're voting on what goes on in our district, and what goes on in this district is we have a good leader. And just like you were not that long ago, we are happy to continue his leadership under his renewed contract. Is that final now? The contract?
It was approved.
Yay! That's all I could say.
Okay, I would like to make a
I'm
comment.
for it.
We are a team, ladies and gentlemen. We need to work together, we need to communicate. And I also need to remind you that when someone is speaking, they have the floor. Let them finish, and then you can make your comments, and I will give you the floor. Okay? So that's how we need to proceed. That's Robert's rules. But we need to be a team, we need to all work together. This is not about us, it's about parents and the students of this district and the employees of this district who value us as their leaders And once again, the primary note from school boards is ours is the what. The superintendent's is the how. We tell him what we want, and he decides how it's best to be done. That's all for me. Anything else from anyone? Okay. And so therefore, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.